So this is a response video to Philip DeFranco about comments that were made in his video on January 5th. His comments were about a recent news story in which 4 young black teens kidnapped a white mentally disabled person and tortured them for hours, some of which was live streamed on Facebook. Now I haven't looked up all of the details of this story, mostly because they actually aren't that relevant to what we're going to talk about later. But Phil puts this clip forward as evidence that it was racially motivated.
Fuck Donald Trump, nigga, fuck white people!
Now I'm just going to assume that there isn't anything more to the story, and that definitely is the reason why these people did this. So the comment that I'm responding to is this.
Blatant and obvious racism, and I said as much last night, which of course, just whenever I talk about this, it always seems that there are a few young white women that are like, well, it's not racism. It's impossible to be racist against white people because there's no systematic oppression. No, you're stupid. When I look in the Oxford English Dictionary, when I look at Merriam-Webster Dictionary, it doesn't say racism, asterisk, not applicable to white people. If this was 4 white people doing this to a young black person, you would say, yes, hate crime, racism. Change the race of the victim to pretty much anything except white, you would say, yes, racist. But by your changing of the definition of racism, white people can't be the victims. Okay, that's a fun place and a perfect time to make that argument. Disgusting.
So first off, let's put aside the fact that he called these people disgusting for their opinions that he obviously took no time to understand. Now I can base that off the fact that his entire counter-argument is based on the definition that he looked up in the dictionary. And he then totally strawmans their point. At no point did they say that the definition of racism is that white people can't be the victim. And I also don't know why he had to specify that it was young white women. That just seems like a weird, pointless fucking detail. I wonder why he put that in. The main problem here is that it's all based on a misunderstanding. When Phil uses the word racism, he's using it in a colloquial sense. But the way that he's using it is describing prejudice, not racism. They're 2 different things. Now this might sound like a pedantic point, but it's similar to how theory is used differently inside the scientific community and outside of it. Inside of science, a theory is an explanation of facts or phenomena that are based on experimentation. Now to most people, a theory just means a hunch, and that's how Phil's using this word. So let's look at this for an example. Now let's say that this represents a population. Everybody in this population has prejudices. Some of those prejudices are based on race, and everybody represented here can commit crimes based on those prejudices. But when you have the majority of people creating a structure of government that are based on their prejudices, now you have a system based on them. That is institutional racism. Now, institutional racism affects everybody in society. It maintains power to the majority who hold it, and it subjugates those who don't have power. That's the reason why people that are in the majority and that are in charge of this system can be racist. But people who are outside of the system and don't have power cannot be racist. They can still be prejudiced. They can still commit crimes based on those prejudices, but they do not have the system of power backing them up in order to make them racist. That's the term that's used across academia and by the US Civil Rights Commission. So that's the problem here. When Phil's talking about racism, what he's actually talking about is crimes committed based on someone's racial prejudices. So, just like somebody having an argument about a theory, they're both right, depending on how they're using the word. But one word, arguably, is less useful. In both cases, it's the colloquial version. Using theory to mean a hunch isn't good, because we already have a word to describe that. Hunch. It takes away the academic and useful version of that word, and it muddies the waters and makes things more confusing. Similarly, when you use the colloquial version of racism, it is also unnecessary. We already have a word for that. Racial prejudice. And it muddies the water when we're talking about larger systems, like institutional racism. But Phil didn't take the time to learn any of this. He just dismisses it right out of hand. And that brings me to the second problem. Now Phil touts himself as giving objective news with some of his opinions and thoughts about the news. Usually, he makes these things very distinct. He gives you the news, and he gives you his opinion on the news. But in this case, he talks about these things as if he is objectively right, as if it isn't his opinion. And in this case, he's just wrong. Now, I like Phil's videos. I've been watching them for years, and I don't always agree with him. But when I don't, I can at least understand where he's coming from. Except when it comes to social justice issues. Usually when it comes to these issues, he simply dismisses things out of hand, and he only covers the most ridiculous, cringy examples. And that's not just a problem with Phil, it's rampant across YouTube right now. There are tons of people getting millions of views by covering pop feminism. Actually, you know what? Side rant. So this brings me back to my first point. In order to properly understand feminist theory, you need a college degree on it. If you don't have a degree, you're much more likely to oversimplify or misunderstand some aspects of the theory, just like with any other theory. Case in point, BuzzFeed. Like this video on manspreading.
My balls! I don't want my balls sticking to my legs!
Now, manspreading in and of itself isn't that big of an issue, but it is a symptom of a larger patriarchal system, which is a problem. So should everybody be mindful of the amount of space they take up in public areas? Yes. Are men more likely to take up space because women are taught to be meek and not make waves, and men are taught to be dominant in almost every situation in life? Yes. But instead of covering any of these basic topics, or even going into deeper aspects of feminist theory, BuzzFeed just makes this super cringy, clickbaity video that everybody's just gonna make fun of. And there are tons of people that make fun of videos like this. And that's the problem. When on one side, all you have is BuzzFeed giving you pop feminism, and on the other side, you have H3H3 Productions, Philip DeFranco, and a lot of people in the skeptical community criticizing them. You now have millions of people who aren't being exposed to the underlying ideas of the theory. And that's a disservice. It would be like if the only representation of science was I fucking love science, or the food babe, who put out a lot of bunk clickbaity titles. So now on both sides, you have people presenting ideas that are turning people off of social justice and feminist theory. And I think that pop feminism bears some responsibility for that, but I also think that the people that are critiquing it have a responsibility to point out the difference between pop feminism and feminist theory. Okay, side rant over. So in conclusion, Phil, you use the word incorrectly. You're no different than a creationist who says, yeah, but that's just the theory. This might all sound pedantic, but words matter. We need these nuanced words to have a meaningful conversation about these very important topics. I like what you do. I think it's very important. And with the new project that you have coming up, you're going to impact even more people. And because of that, you have more of a responsibility to those viewers. And I think that you take that very seriously. So for that reason, please do more research on this topic. Look up the actual academic work on these things. If you're going to talk about them, please do it from an educated, thoughtful place.
It feels like another example of media just trying to get those clicks and not taking any time to respect the thing that they're talking about. I feel like for me, that's the problem with so much news. It's just a bunch of people talking. You feel like they don't even care. They're just taking advantage of a situation, using it. No, you're stupid. When I look in the Oxford English Dictionary, when I look at Merriam-Webster Dictionary, it doesn't say racism, asterisk, not applicable to white people. By your changing of the definition of racism, white people can't be the victims. Okay, that's a fun place and a perfect time to make that argument. Disgusting.
Okay, well that's the end of the video. So if you have any thoughts, please put them down in the comments. Make sure to like this video if you liked it, and be sure to subscribe if you want more videos like this. Hopefully I'll see you in the next one. And until then, I'll be right here trying to figure out.